I'm Jennifer Schutter, Field Specialist in Horticulture for University of Missouri Extension, and I'm going to talk about gardening tips for May. So let's go through these gardening tips, starting with the ornamentals. So if you're growing different ornamentals, here are some tips that you should be aware of. Pinch azaleas and rhododendron blossoms as they fade. And right now they are in full bloom and they look so beautiful. But as they fade, you can pinch those blossoms off. Double flowered azaleas don't need to be pinched. Fertilize azaleas after they bloom and use a formulation that has an acidic reaction. Rhododendrons and azaleas like acidic soil. So when you're shopping at a garden center, look for a fertilizer formulation that is acidic. Apples, crab apples, and hawthorns susceptible to rust disease should have protective fungicide sprays applied beginning when these trees are in bloom. And you will start to see apples and crab apples form cedar apple rust spots as we go into later spring. And then I also see hawthorns during some years that have rust spots on them. And to protect them, you want to use a fungicidal spray. Begin planting your gladiolus bulbs as the ground warms. I planted some gladiolus bulbs. I really like gladiolus. They are a favorite summertime bulb flower of mine. And I've actually planted them. So if you have not planted them yet, go ahead and do that now. And if you want continuous blooms, plant them at 2-week intervals. Plant hardy water lilies in tubs or garden pools or water gardens if you have one. Continue monitoring pines, especially Scotch amugo pine, for sawfly activity on new shoots. And I haven't seen this yet, but some years I have seen sawfly larvae in pines, and particularly amugo pine in the northeast Missouri area. Don't remove spring bulb foliage prematurely or next year's flower production will decline. So leave your foliage on the bulb plants as they turn yellow and brown. And you can plant annual flowers in between to hide that dying foliage if you want to, but don't remove it until it is dead. And then you can remove it. Don't ever remove green foliage from bulb flowers. Canker worms or inchworms rarely cause permanent damage to ornamentals. You might see some, but rarely do they cause much damage. And if necessary, you can use BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, which is found in the brand of insecticide called Dipel, found at most garden centers. You can begin planting warm season annuals, like all the warm season annual flowers and vegetable plants, such as your tomatoes and zucchini and the melons. So go ahead and get those in the ground, or maybe you're going to plant in a raised bed or in a container. I plant in all three, and right now I have flowers and vegetables in the containers. I have them in the raised beds, and I have them growing in the ground and doing well right now. Plant summer bulbs such as caladiums, dahlias, cannas, and elephant ear. So it is time to do that. Scale, we're talking about insect scales. Scale crawlers are active now. Infested pines and euonymus should be treated at this time. And usually a oil-based product is what is recommended for scale. You can always call me or your horticulture specialist that covers your county for recommendations. Trees with a history of borer problems should receive their first sprays now. And this might be a native, well, usually we have native borers in native trees and other trees, and they usually don't do any damage. Peach tree borer is a borer that will attack peach trees, and that is one you want to spray for. So here we're mainly talking about peach tree borers, apple tree borers, borers like that do damage. Trees with a history, a history of borer problems should be sprayed. Repeat that twice at 3-week intervals. Begin fertilizing your annuals. Continue at regular intervals. So if you planted your annuals a few weeks back and they're starting to kind of turn yellow or a little pale, they're telling you that they need some fertilizer, and you may need to fertilize them once or twice a month. Bulbs can be moved or divided as the foliage dies. So those of you that are wanting to move daffodils or tulip bulbs, wait till the foliage dies down and then dig the bulbs up and move them. Pinch your chrysanthemums back to promote bushy growth. So just pinch the tips out and do that until about the 4th of July or maybe the middle of July. That promotes them to be more compact and bushier. Moving on to vegetables. Slugs will hide during the daytime beneath a board placed over damp ground. Check each morning and destroy any slugs that have gathered on the underside of the board. So sometimes gardeners find slugs eating their vegetable plants as well as their ornamentals. So slugs can be a problem. I usually don't have a major problem with slugs, but they are out there. Growing lettuce under screening materials will slow bolting, which is flowering and going to seed, and extend harvest into hot weather. Place cutworm collars around young transplants. Collars are easily made from cardboard strips. And cutworms are little worms that will feed at the base of your plants. Set out tomato plants as the soil warms. Place support stakes alongside at planting time or cages. Isolate sweet, super sweet, and popcorn varieties of corn to prevent cross-pollinating. Keep asparagus harvested for continued spear production and control asparagus beetles as needed. And asparagus is up and doing well right now, and I am noticing some eggs. And I have seen the beetles out there. So just a heads up on that. Thin plantings of carrots and beets to avoid overcrowding. Control caterpillars on broccoli and cabbage plants by hand picking them, or use biological sprays containing Bacillus thuringiensis found in the product Dipel. Plant dill to use when making pickles. You can plant other herbs too. There's a lot of good herbs out there that you can plant now to use in your cooking. Remove rhubarb flower stalks and seeds as they appear. You don't need those on your plant. They will zap energy from the plant, so take those off as they appear. Watch for the striped and spotted cucumber beetles. Both may spread bacterial wilt and mosaic diseases to squash and cucumber plants. So keep an eye out for them and control them. If you need control recommendations, contact your county extension center. Set out peppers and eggplants after soil has warmed, which is now. I planted peppers already, so go ahead and set out those warm season crops. Plant sweet potatoes now also, and I have done that. I planted my sweet potatoes in large livestock mineral tubs. Several years ago, I was having issues with them planted directly in the ground, and I would dig them up and find beautiful hollowed out shells, and these nice big sweet potatoes, just the beautiful shell on the outside and no potato on the inside, and there were large teeth marks. So never figured out what was eating them, but something did. And since then I started growing them in large livestock mineral tubs and have had no problem. And I have been growing some really nice sized sweet potatoes in those tubs. Make new sowings of warm season vegetables after harvesting early crops. So as we go into late May, early June, and the lettuce wraps up and the spinach, pull those out and then plant warm season vegetables in their place. Regarding fruit plants, mulch your blueberries with pine needles or sawdust. Both are acidifying mulches, and blueberries like acidic soil. Do not spray any fruit trees while they are in bloom. We need bees, and spraying while they are in bloom will kill the bees. Refer to local extension publications for a fruit spray schedule. And regarding turf grass on lawns, keep bluegrass cut at 1.5 to 2.5 inches. Mow tall fescue at 2 to 3.5 inches in height. We really recommend now about 3 to 3.5 inches. Apply a post-emergence broadleaf weed control if needed. And watch out for the sod webworms because they start emerging. And for more information and tips, or if you have any questions, contact your county extension center.